In this video, we'll be providing an overview on how to do a quick trade-off analysis using the set reference tool. When using SEER-H, you may want to see what impact a parameter, a set of parameters, or even a k-base has on your estimate. One way that you can do this is by copying the element you want to do the comparison on, and then changing some of the parameters in there. And then comparing the output of this new element to the old element. Now, the problem with this is that you either need to export both outputs into Excel, or you'll have to exercise your memory and try to remember the difference between the two elements. A better and simpler way to do this is to utilize the set reference tool. To do this, you're going to select the element you want to do the comparison on, and then select the set reference tool, which can be found either under the Home tab or in the up left corner of the model. Once that set reference tool is selected, you'll be prompted to give a description. For this example, we are just going to call this the original estimate. Once you select OK, you'll notice that the quick estimate report has changed. The middle column represents the cost of our initial estimate. Regardless of the changes we make with the set reference on, this column will remain the same. This first column represents the cost of the current settings. This column will increase and decrease depending on the settings selected. And then finally, we have the difference column, which will show the difference between the cost as a percentage. Currently, since we have not changed any parameters or k-bases, you'll notice that the estimate and the reference are the same value. If, however, we change a parameter, say the weight will change to 1.5 instead of 15, you'll notice that the original estimate has remained unchanged. However, to the left, you'll notice that the estimate has actually decreased. If we were to change yet another parameter, you'll notice the estimate column again changes correspondingly, yet still the original estimate reference remains unchanged. Now, if at any point you want to go back to the original estimate, you can always set this revert to reference. And when you hit that and then select OK, you'll notice that your estimate goes back to the state it was before you made any changes. Now, the set reference tool is not only useful for parameters, it can actually be used with k-bases as well. If we decide that we want to change a k-base, we can change this to say spaceman, apply. And again, you'll notice that the estimate column changes, yet still the original estimate reference remains unchanged. Once you are ready to exit the set reference mode, you can do that simply by selecting the clear reference. Now, it's important to note that when you select clear reference, it will keep all the changes you have already made. If you want to go back to your initial estimate, it is good to do the revert to reference first, and then clear reference. Now, you can also use the set reference to look at a group of elements. To do that, instead of selecting a mechanical or electronic element, you're going to select a roll-up instead, and then place the set reference marker. Again, giving it description, selecting OK, and again, you'll see that change, the estimate, the receiver module reference, and the difference. Once the reference is set, you can make changes to the elements below, and you'll see the aggregate effect to those elements. So for now, we'll change this all to space manned. We'll select multiple elements. And you'll see that we're going to be selecting just this. And you can see the aggregated effect of changing all the elements to space manned. It is important to note that the revert to reference does not work at a roll-up level. And so if we go to hit revert to reference, you'll see you'll get that warning sign. You'll hit OK. But when we double click on this, you can see that it's still a spaceman platform. And so if you are going to use the set reference for a group of elements, it's important to only use it if the changes being made can be easily undone. For instance, if you're changing the platform across all elements, or if you're changing the development practices across all elements, or if you're changing the production environment across all elements, then you can use the set reference because you can easily change those back to what their original settings were. However, if you're going to be changing individual parameters across a number of elements, it's suggested that you make a copy. That way you don't lose your work after you make that change. The last thing that we want to look at is the input versus reference report. The quick estimate and the input reference report are the only two reports that work with the set reference tool. The input versus reference report does essentially what the name implies. It's going to compare the inputs of your new estimate to the inputs of the old reference. So for example, let's clear this reference. So we'll go back to here, hit clear reference. We'll go down to the RCV chassis. We'll select this set reference. We're going to right click on this. We're going to go to choose active reports. And we will choose this input versus reference report. When we select that, currently you'll notice that there aren't any differences because we haven't made any changes. But let's say we change this to 10. And then we'll change this to 100%. You can see in this input versus reference, it will show you the changes that you have made. On this left column, it's what's currently in the model. And on the right column, it shows you what was in the model. What's powerful about this tool is that we can actually use this to compare two completely different elements. So let's say that we want to compare the RCV chassis with the RF machine housing. We can actually click on the RF machine housing and we'll see the parameters that are selected for the RF machine housing and then the parameters that are different in the RCV chassis. And you can use this technique to help you to identify why two elements that should be identical are giving different estimates. We hope you found this video helpful. And as always, if you have questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to the Galarath support team.